It's Monday, June 29th, and this is now on HNN.
We're hoping that things will drop off.
More COVID-19 clusters have been identified as the state's case numbers continue to rise.
I want to caution everybody as we go to July 4th weekend, do not go to big parties.
This as we learn a city bus driver has tested positive for the virus.
You shouldn't be driving if you're sick.
Coronavirus cases are surging in many parts of the country. I'm Chris Martinez with the measures some states are taking to try to control the spread.
COVID-19 has taken a very swift and very dangerous turn.
We're not going to pass a mandate that is unenforceable.
Today's talker, the mixed messages coming from America's leaders regarding masks.
Oh, I just don't want to wear one myself.
These stories plus a back-to-school deal. The state and the teachers union have reached an agreement on returning to classrooms. Coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for watching This Is Now. I'm your director, Jonathan, alongside Ashley here. We want to start with just minutes ago, we got new numbers in from the Department of Health, right, Ash?
Yep. Hey, everyone. The health department is reporting just 2 COVID-19 cases today. We're still awaiting details on where those patients are from. Our statewide total now stands at 900 after one Maui case was removed because of updated data. Meanwhile, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, says he is optimistic a vaccine will be available by 2021.
What I've seen thus far looks good. So with all the caveats that go with no guarantee, I still think that one can say that I'm cautiously optimistic that we will have one or maybe more candidates of vaccines that could be available and be effective by the end of the year, the beginning of 2021.
Here at home, the state says another reason for the uptick in numbers is its aggressive contact tracing program. Sunday's case count included 17 patients who were linked to an Oahu funeral. They were all tracked down through contact tracing. So was the pair of cases on Kauai and another cluster of 6 cases in Leeward, Oahu.
The TSA tells us this past weekend was one of the busiest weekends in months for U.S. air travel. They say that's only expected to get even busier as we approach the 4th of July holiday. Nearly 2,000 people landed in the state on Saturday. 683 were returning residents, followed by 481 visitors. On Friday, the Hawaii Tourism Authority said 333 visitors and 324 returning residents flew into our state. They'll all be subject to mandatory 14-day quarantine. And you'll recall, starting August 1st, out-of-state travelers will be able to avoid that quarantine if they take a test prior to arriving in the state. Over the weekend, we learned that a Honolulu city bus driver tested positive for COVID-19. Lacey Denise has more.
Officials found out that the driver had the virus on Saturday night and immediately sanitized all of the facilities where the infected driver had been. We're told the driver began to feel sick last week Monday, but kept working 8 to 9 hours a day all the way through Friday.
The protocol is you shouldn't be driving if you're sick.
If an operator is feeling sick, they are to report to HR immediately and let HR know. From there, HR gives them the guidance on what to do next.
Officials say the infected operator drove several different routes over the past week. They are Route 9, Pearl Harbor to Kaimuki, Route 40, Makaha to Honolulu, Route 42, Eva Beach to Waikiki, Route 88A, North Shore Express, and Route 501, Mililani Mauka. Officials are still gathering details on when he drove the routes. The city is also working with the state health department on contact tracing. Buses are also being sanitized daily.
We will be providing them all the information that we possibly can to make sure that they can do their job to the best of their ability. Confident that the protections that we've put into place and some of the procedures we put into place will help keep the workforce and our other passengers as safe as possible.
The city bus driver and another employee who tested positive are now in quarantine. For This Is Now, I'm Lacey Denise.
Hawaii's Teachers Union says it reached a deal with the State Department of Education to return to classes this upcoming school year. HSTA says education officials agreed to nearly every one of its proposals. That includes maintaining a 6-foot distance between students and teachers whenever possible. It also says everyone on campus, teachers, other staff, students, and visitors should wear face coverings. Cleaning supplies and PPE will be available to educators, and if they have to buy their own supplies, the DOE will reimburse them.
For the most part, I think most of our teachers will find a lot of good in it. I'm sure there's going to be areas where there's going to be some concern. And what we're asking for is teachers to have these conversations with their administrator to make sure that these problems are solved.
Not all of HSTA's demands were met. We're told the state did not agree to any blanket guarantee of telework, nor did it offer childcare for teachers with kids impacted by the hybrid schedules. Teachers can participate in a virtual briefing in the next week to learn more about the deal. The DOE says it plans to release more details on Thursday, and the public school calendar is set to begin on August 4th. Nationally, more than 30 states are reporting an increase in coronavirus cases, and at least 13 states have halted their reopening plans, including Texas and California. Chris Martinez reports.
In Austin, Texas, people waited on long lines to get tested for the coronavirus.
The labs are just overwhelmed.
Texas reported nearly 6,000 new cases in one day. To slow the surge, restaurants cannot exceed 50% capacity, and bars have been closed since Friday.
COVID-19 has taken a very swift and very dangerous turn in Texas over just the past few weeks.
Cases in Florida are also surging so much that some beaches are closing over the 4th of July weekend.
It's really as if we had never bothered to do the quarantine.
In California, bars in 7 counties, including here in Los Angeles, have been ordered closed. In 8 other counties, it's still only a recommendation, not a requirement.
I think if you're going to shut the bars down, it should be at 10 o'clock.
Tommy Macias died from COVID after attending a backyard barbecue in Southern California 2 weeks ago, where he later learned someone had the virus.
I hate to think that he left worrying about all of us left behind.
Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar tells CBS News traditional tools such as contact tracing are not enough to control the spread.
We've got to use tools we use in other types of public health challenges. Actually get engaged in the community, find those cases, but then test everybody in the community, find the cases, isolate those individuals.
He urges Americans to wear masks when they can't socially distance. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The global COVID-19 case count has now topped 10 million. That's coming from Johns Hopkins University, who's been collecting a lot of data on this, as we all know. This, as we learn news out of China, there's a new outbreak that's prompted nearly 400,000 people to be put on lockdown near Beijing. David Culver has much more on that.
Here in China, a new strict lockdown about 90 miles from us here in Beijing. It's got some 400,000 residents essentially shut off from their neighbors. The lockdown is reminiscent of Wuhan's, though it's a more rural community that's impacted here. Officials have ordered all villages, communities, and buildings be fully closed off. One family member is allowed to leave the house each day so that they can go and buy some necessities. Now, this may seem extreme given that the county has only reported less than 20 coronavirus cases. But this follows a recent cluster outbreak from a Beijing wholesale food market, and that led to compartmentalized lockdowns right here in the capital. Some Beijing communities, in fact, are still sealed off more than 2 weeks after that cluster outbreak. Officials say this most recent one is under control, though they have stepped up mass testing, which they say has now covered more than 7.5 million people here in Beijing. Now, part of the extreme response in this latest lockdown shows the fear of a potential second wave here in China and how quickly life can go from near normal back to lockdown mode. David Culver, Beijing.
The maker of a drug shown to shorten recovery time for severely ill COVID-19 patients says it will charge $2,340 for a typical treatment course for people covered by government health programs in the United States and other developed countries. Gilead Sciences announced the price today for remdesivir and said the price would be $3,120 for patients with private insurance. It will sell for far less in poor countries where generic drug makers are being allowed to make it. A local health expert is urging the state to explore pool testing, especially since the state is reopening to out-of-state travelers. Dr. Dara O'Carroll was on Sunrise this morning to talk about it.
And what it's doing is pooling a bunch of samples, a bunch of, let's say in this case, nasal swabs into one testing kit. And if that whole pool comes back negative, which would be the case if remains in low prevalence in Hawaii and also in tourists that may be visiting, if they have a negative PCR screen before they get onto the plane, the chances of that whole pool being negative are high. And that, in a sense, will save testing capacity for contact tracing, such as, we just heard that one of our bus drivers turned out having a positive test, and would save resources and also allow us to test a bit quicker.
So I think Dr. Deborah Burke said they could basically go from 500,000 tests per day in the U.S. to 5 million if they were to do this type of pool testing. So my question to you is are you proposing that maybe we should do this for pool our out-of-state visitors as they come in and test them this way instead of having each of them do their own test?
I would say it's something that we can explore. We'd have to have discussions with the Department of Health on when it's needed. If they're coming from hotspots such as Texas, Florida, Arizona, where the case positive rate is now jumping into the 12% or even higher, pool testing isn't going to be quite as efficient. You have to ratchet down the number of people in those pools. A lot of studies have shown, and these are again prelim studies, have shown that if you batch down the pools to at least 4 or 5, and Dr. Redfield of the CDC specifically said they're looking at pool testing of 5 people into one test. That might be more apropos for each of these situations. It's a situation in flux, and it's a method that I think we need to at least consider and look at, and our state and governmental officials are considering it at this time.
There's a new CBS News poll out, and it shows that Republicans are actually less likely to wear masks in public than Democrats. In today's Talker Story, Ed O'Keefe reports on the mixed messages American leaders are sending about mask wearing.
If your local officials, in consultation with the state, are directing you to wear a mask, we encourage everyone to wear a mask.
Despite Vice President Pence showing support for masks on Sunday, in an interview taped Saturday with Face the Nation, he said that he and President Trump believe it's up to local officials to set the rules.
We've made it clear that we want to defer to governors, we want to defer to local officials.
The patchwork of decisions made by state officials has stretched beyond masks to testing and reopening, and it's leading to mixed outcomes.
If I could go back and redo anything, it probably would have been to slow down the opening of bars.
We used science, and we wouldn't open any region unless they hit certain metrics.
Science shows when people wear masks, the virus doesn't transmit as easily. But across the country, there's confusion as mayors, county leaders, and governors all set different examples. In New Jersey, where masks are required in most public places, Democratic Governor Phil Murphy publicly shames constituents on how to wear one. But in Arkansas, Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson says a statewide mandate would be difficult.
We're not going to pass a mandate that is unenforceable.
From the beginning of the pandemic, Mr. Trump has shunned masks.
Well, I just don't want to wear one myself.
But Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden regularly appears in public wearing a mask and says he'd make it a national standard.
One thing we do know, these masks make a gigantic difference.
The mixed messages are causing angry confrontations nationwide, like at this California supermarket on Friday, where a woman refused to wear one, saying she had breathing problems. Dr. William Schaffner is a professor of infectious diseases.
This virus knows no political affiliation. It will infect you whether you're blue, red, or green.
Ed O'Keefe, CBS News, Washington.
Thank you, Ed, for that report. Certainly a debate we've seen on our Facebook live stream in the comments section. And no one wants to see scenes like what happened in California there. No one. No debate, regardless of what side of the debate you are on. Let's get over to Guy Hoggy with the check of your weather.
How's it on this Monday? I'm Guy Hoggy with your weather report. Things are looking really nice out there. Not much in the way of upstream moisture, although there are some clouds upstream with that easterly wind flow. We could see some clouds scatter over windward areas, but we're not expecting a whole lot of rain. A little damp this morning for Oahu's windward side. Otherwise, we're not seeing much in the way of rainfall, nor is much expected anytime soon. And those winds, soft and scrambled, slowly building in speed, mostly coming out of the east today. They'll run about 10 to 15 miles an hour. And because they won't be that strong, humidity levels will be soaring today. It's going to be a hot and sticky day, especially for Kailua Kona, but at least we have a little bit of a trade wind breeze. Now, those temperatures running to near 90 today, maybe even hotter for some leeward spots. Now, out in the ocean, we still are dealing with that high surf advisory for South Shores. West Shore is getting some of that energy as well. It's going to be dropping by tomorrow, but for today, if you're inexperienced in large surf, stay out of the ocean on the South Shores, because you'll have waves like this, if not bigger, and we'll have beautiful beach weather to boot. Light trade winds today, picking up speed tomorrow, all the way till 4th of July until they lighten up again. Keep it here on Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
All right, thank you, Guy. Now time for some good news. 250 kokua boxes were distributed this weekend in Kaka'ako. Each box was filled with 35 pounds of local produce, and they were handed out to restaurant and retail workers affected by the outbreak. And the program was a joint initiative with the Hawaii Ag and Culinary Alliance, our Kaka'ako, Ward Village, and Home Produce and Seafood. And on Friday, I got to witness an emotional send-off for an Oahu man who was hospitalized for almost 88 days battling COVID-19. 72-year-old Jack Dennis is being called the Miracle Man, and the retired Honolulu fire captain was rushed to the ER on March 30th after returning from a cruise from Australia and New Zealand.
I love this story.
Wearing maile, pikake, and his signature black hat, Jack waved to the hospital staff who took care of him for the last 88 days. At Adventist Health Castle, loved ones and his Honolulu fire family cheered as he was wheeled outside. Jack is unable to speak right now because he had a tracheotomy, but his wife of almost 25 years expressed their happiness and gratitude for the both of them.
He came close a couple times, very close, and I just want to thank you all for your prayers, because God heard them, and that's why he's here today. It means I have my husband back. It means his children has his dad back. And it means his grandchildren has their papa back.
Donna says she also tested positive for COVID-19, but she only had body aches and a slight fever. Jack's doctors say he was intubated within minutes of arriving at the hospital and spent 66 days on a ventilator before he was able to breathe on his own.
One night, he just said, nope, I'm not going back on the ventilator. And from that day forward, he never went back on the ventilator. This is what we all do this for. And to see your hard work pay off like this is just awesome.
Since nobody's know exactly what the textbook, how to treat him properly, we became innovative in terms of how to be the novel technique to treat him.
Jack lost about 40 pounds during his battle with COVID-19, and he's looking forward to enjoying all of his favorite local grinds again.
He has a long list of what he wants to eat besides oxtail soup, spam and egg sandwich, wonton min, pork tofu.
He and his family want the public to know that this pandemic is real.
You better wake up. Yeah, my husband said you better wake up. This is not a joke.
Yeah, and so at Castle, they didn't have visitors for the first 2 months of the pandemic, obvious reasons, and that was really hard for the wife, but she said she would FaceTime him and call him almost every day, even if he wasn't, coherent at the time, but he said he heard her.
Yeah, and that's very powerful there at the end when he whispered, this is not a joke.
Yes.
Take heed there, folks. Yeah. All right, let's get to some more good news. Green sea turtles are still nesting at Bella's Beach. We got Casey Lund there with an update.
This is a really cool story. Very happy to be here. Grateful for the Marine Corps for letting us on to talk a little bit about what a special event this is. Dane Christensen, one of the biologists with Marine Corps, documenting these honu that have nested here. So far, how many do we know for sure have built nests here, laid eggs?
We've documented 12 presumed nests, and it's difficult to tell how many of those presumed nests actually have eggs deposited in the chamber.
You'd have to dig down and really disrupt that, and that's of course something we don't want to do. Can you tell us, as far as we know, where things are with the incubation process and what's going to happen here in the next little bit?
Well, one of the first nests that we've documented was found in early April,
And then there was a little bit of a lull, and the nesting period really hit just a couple of months ago. So we're about 30 days in the incubation period, and the overall incubation period takes about 2 months.
And then my question, and forgive me for not knowing, but the mother Honu do not come back, right? Once they lay their eggs, they're kind of on their own?
The hatchlings or the mother?
Yeah, the hatchlings.
The hatchlings are on their own, and so they have to make it from the nest chamber to the sea while avoiding predation, traffic, all sorts of dangers, and it's not a high survival rate that they have.
Yeah, and speaking of that, speaking of some of the hazards that they might encounter as they try to make it back out to sea, we want to let people know a few things about this site, mainly trying to keep them protected. What can the public do to educate themselves and, again, avoid this area?
Well, to educate themselves, there's a lot of resources online, Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, or locally, Malamana Honu. What they can do to protect the nest is walk in the tide line, because then their footprints and depressions will get wiped away by the waves. And those can be obstacles for the hatchlings, which are itty-bitty when they hatch. Also, we want to reduce any four-wheel drive traffic and any compression that might happen over the nest chamber. As you can see, we've got a perimeter set up with high visibility ropes so that people know that they're here and to respect their area.
Very good. Dane Christensen, again, one of the biologists with the Marine Corps. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. MalamaNahonu.org, where you can go to follow along, learn a little bit more about the turtles here that are nesting at Marine Training Beach near Bellows Air Force Station. We'll send it back to you guys in studio for now.
Thank you, Casey.
I hope they all make it to the
ocean. I didn't realize that either.
You haven't seen the National Geographic video of the sea turtles, the babies trying to get to the water, and the seagulls?
I know, I saw that Planet Earth. I know, it's heart-wrenching.
It hurts.
Suspense, for real. They do it right there. You guys, let's see what the internet's talking about right now. Our segment called From the Feeds.
That's right. Broadway will remain closed until January due to the pandemic. The Broadway League made the announcement today and is offering refunds and exchanges for tickets bought for all performances through January 3rd. Returning productions are projected to resume performances over a series of rolling dates in early 2021. Tickets for next winter and spring performances are expected to go on sale in the coming weeks, and Broadway shows they shut down March 12th, and Broadway is now in its longest shutdown ever.
It's hard to believe that icon.
I know.
Tourism there has just been shut down. It's happening everywhere, folks. All right, guys. Toyota putting the brakes on a popular model of cars. We're talking about the Toyota Yaris. I actually had one of these for many years before my most recent car. This is going to be the last round. The production wraps up this month. They've sort of slowed down in sales because of the popularity of SUVs and pickups. They've sort of regained momentum. Yaris sales fell actually nearly 20%. I'm a small car guy, actually. I don't drive much. As you know, I've had a car for 2.5 years and have less than 6,000 miles on it. So
I need some room.
Yeah.
All right, if you're a pizza lover like me, starting today, you can order Shaq's favorite pizza.
Oh, yeah.
It's called the Shaq-a-Roni, available for a limited time at Papa John's. Now, the 16-inch extra-large pie has 66 pieces of pepperoni, while the standard Papa John's pizza has 10 slices. This one has 8 huge slices. Now, Shaquille O'Neal says he can eat one in a single sitting. I probably can, too.
Yeah,
and $1 from the sale of each pizza will go to a foundation that supports underserved communities.
All right, what's Beyonce got going on?
Beyonce just teamed up with Disney Plus for her visual album Black is King. Now, she unveiled a new teaser trailer for the upcoming film, which she wrote, directed, and produced. Black is King is based on music from her album The Lion King, The Gift, and debuts July 31st on Disney Plus.
Very cool. Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this Monday edition of This Is Now. You know, we also do a podcast edition of this show. You can find it wherever you find your podcast, along with a couple of our other shows from Sunrise and our 5 p.m. You can also find a special podcast from Stephanie Lum there, so check it out. You guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow at noon.
Aloha.